The air in the 40th floor boardroom was as thin and expensive as the crystal water glasses on the polished mahogany. Outside, the iconic monuments of Washington, D.C. sprawled under a crisp, indifferent autumn sky. Inside, all eyes were on Victoria Sterling. At 45, she was a vision of curated power, a sculpture carved from ambition, and draped in a tailored navy dress that cost more than a mortgage payment. Her expression was serene, almost placid, a look that the men across the table found far more terrifying than any overt display of aggression. This was her arena, the Colosseum where she had vanquished every opponent for the last decade. "Your algorithm is reactive," she stated, her voice smooth and even, cutting through the nervous tension. "It identifies problems only after they've already cost you money. Sterling Solutions, on the other hand, offers a predictive framework. We don't just solve your problems. We architect a future where they cease to exist." She paused, letting the sheer weight of her words settle into the silence. Her gaze swept across the room, making each executive feel individually assessed and found wanting. A brief, involuntary flicker of memory brought an image of her ex-husband David to the forefront of her mind. She could almost see his perpetually worried expression, the weary slump of his shoulders after a long day at his steady, predictable job at the Department of Commerce. "When will it be enough, Vicky?" he used to ask, his voice a tired blend of awe and deep-seated resentment. He could never comprehend the fire that burned in her, the insatiable hunger to build something permanent, something sterling. He saw her 18-hour days not as the foundation of an empire, but as the architecture of abandonment. The divorce had been the inevitable, ugly price for that fundamental, irreconcilable difference. A senior partner cleared his throat, a dry, rasping sound that pulled her back to the present. "We'll need to see a more detailed proposal before we can—" Victoria offered a faint, dismissive smile. "You've had the proposal for 2 weeks. What you need," she said, leaning forward just slightly, "is to make a decision before your competitors do." The deal was closed 10 minutes later. That evening, the city lights glittered like a carpet of scattered diamonds below her penthouse apartment in city center D.C. The space was a testament to her tastes, minimalist, modern, and immaculately clean. She stood by the floor-to-ceiling windows, a glass of Pinot Noir swirling in her hand. Her phone chimed, a delicate sound in the quiet room. A text from her son, Jamal. "Hit the game winner tonight. Coach is talking to scouts from Georgetown. You would have been proud." A pang of guilt, sharp and familiar, pierced through her victory lap. She'd missed another game for another critical meeting. She typed back, her thumbs moving swiftly. "I'm always proud, superstar. I'll make the next one, I promise. Dinner tomorrow, my treat." "The Dabney?" The reply was almost instant. "Deal, but only if you don't check your phone." Victoria smiled, a genuine, unguarded smile that few people ever saw. Jamal, her brilliant, talented son, was the entire point of this kingdom. He was the reason she'd endured the lonely nights and the quiet, simmering judgment of a husband who just wanted a conventional wife. Later that week, she found herself at the annual Children's Foundation Gala, a necessary performance on the grand stage of DC society. She was standing near the bar, projecting an aura of polite, untouchable boredom, when a man approached her. He was tall, with the easy posture of a natural-born athlete, and a smile that seemed to physically disarm the entire room. "Victoria Sterling," he said, his voice a low, smooth baritone. "I've been wanting to meet the woman who's making every CEO in this town nervous. I'm Donovan Cross." Don Cross. The name registered instantly. A former all-star for the Washington Wizards, now a beloved local celebrity. He was even more handsome in person. Victoria raised a perfectly sculpted eyebrow. "I hope that's a compliment, Mr. Cross." "It's the highest compliment there is," he replied, his eyes twinkling. "It means you're winning." The connection was immediate, a spark of electricity in the stale, perfumed air. He didn't talk to her about profit margins. He talked about pressure, about the drive to be the best, the loneliness at the top. He understood her language. For the first time in years, Victoria felt seen, not as a CEO or a mother, but as a woman. When he took her hand and led her to the dance floor, she didn't resist. She let herself be guided, feeling a dangerous, intoxicating heat spread through her veins, a warmth she had long forgotten. If you're enjoying this story, take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications so you don't miss the next episode. The months that followed were a golden haze, a sun-drenched montage pulled from a perfect Hollywood romance. Donovan Cross didn't just enter Victoria's life, he seemed to complete it, fitting into the empty spaces she hadn't even realized were there. He wasn't intimidated by her success. He celebrated it with a genuine, infectious enthusiasm. He would surprise her with last-minute reservations at the inn at Little Washington, a 3-star Michelin temple of gastronomy, or whisk her away for spontaneous weekends in the rolling hills of Middleburg, where their phones were switched off and the relentless hum of the city couldn't touch them. He was a warm, grounding presence in her meticulously structured world. Most importantly, he adored Jamal. When Donovan learned of Jamal's fierce basketball aspirations, his eyes lit up with a purpose that went beyond simple charm. "A lefty point guard with a high basketball IQ," he'd said, a wide grin spreading across his face. "That's a rare breed. Mind if I come watch him practice? See if the kid's got the real fire for it." Donovan didn't just watch, he immersed himself. He became a fixture at Jamal's practices, spending countless hours on the sun-baked court at Rose Park in Georgetown. He wasn't just a coach, he was a sculptor, refining Jamal's explosive crossover, perfecting the arc of his jump shot, and teaching him the intricate mental chess game that separates the good from the truly great. Victoria would often watch them from the sidelines, a thermos of coffee in her hands, her heart swelling with a profound, unfamiliar sense of peace. David, with his 9-to-5 mentality, had never connected with Jamal's athletic passion this way. Donovan was the dedicated father figure Jamal deserved, and the passionate, understanding partner Victoria craved. Her life, she believed, was finally perfectly complete. The first crack in this flawless facade appeared on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. Elena, the family's loyal and discreet maid of 15 years, requested a private word with Victoria. She stood nervously in the gleaming white expanse of the kitchen, her hands twisting the fabric of her apron. "Mrs. Sterling," she began, her voice barely a whisper. "I was cleaning Mr. Jamal's bathroom. I found something. I don't know what it is, but I thought you should see." She held out a small, discreetly wrapped object. Victoria's eyes focused on it. It was a douche, clinical and unmistakable. Her mind recoiled, refusing to process the implication. A cold, defensive wall snapped into place. "It's probably for a science project, Elena," she said, her voice sharp as she waved a dismissive hand. "Or some kind of prank. Don't worry about it." But the image was seared into her mind, a corrosive brand on her perfect reality. That night, she attempted to breach the subject with Jamal, feigning a casual air that felt foreign and clumsy on her tongue. "So," she began, as he was grabbing a snack from the fridge, "is there anyone special in your life? You know you can tell me anything." Jamal, who was usually so open and cheerful with her, immediately stiffened. His entire posture became defensive. "What? No. Why are you asking me that?" he snapped, his voice tight. "I'm focused on basketball. Don says I can't have any distractions right now." The casual, authoritative way he invoked Donovan's name sent a strange, cold prickle down Victoria's spine. It wasn't a suggestion, it was a decree. She began to watch them then, truly watch them, with the same analytical eyes she used to dissect a hostile company's balance sheet. She noticed things she had previously dismissed as camaraderie. The way Donovan's hand would linger on Jamal's shoulder for a fraction of a second too long. The private, whispered jokes that would have them laughing conspiratorially while she stood on the outside. The way they would sometimes look at each other across the dinner table. A look of intense, shared understanding that felt far more intimate than mentorship. The doubt began to fester, a silent, creeping poison in her perfect world. If you're enjoying this story, take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications so you don't miss the next episode. Victoria's mind, a finely tuned instrument for strategy and data analysis, shifted into a familiar, ruthless gear. She began her investigation subtly, using the same methods that had made her a titan of the consulting world. She started with the schedules. Donovan's calendar, which he shared with her, was filled with entries like Jamal training and court time. Jamal's school calendar was a digital tapestry of classes and practices. Her own schedule was a fortress of meetings. She laid them all out, side by side, on the massive screen in her home office, cross-referencing dates and times with a cold, methodical precision. For days, everything aligned. The paranoia began to feel foolish, an unwelcome emotional indulgence. Then she found it. A single glaring discrepancy on a Thursday afternoon. Donovan's calendar had a bold 2-hour block labeled Specialized Agility Training, West Jamal at Jelif. But Jamal's official school calendar, which she had triple-checked, showed he had the entire afternoon off for a teacher workday. It was a lie. A small, almost insignificant lie, but it was a crack in the foundation, and Victoria knew that even the smallest crack could bring the entire structure crashing down. The lie felt like a tremor before a catastrophic earthquake. That morning, she moved with chilling purpose. She walked into her office at Sterling Solutions, informed her executive assistant that a critical off-site meeting had been moved up, and that she would be unreachable for the next few hours. There was no tremor in her voice, no hint of the storm raging within her. She got into her black Mercedes S-Class, the leather cool against her skin, her hands gripping the steering wheel with a white-knuckled intensity. She drove through the bustling streets of D.C., her face an unreadable mask, and headed towards Georgetown. The Jelif Boys and Girls Club was quiet, the afternoon sun slanting across the polished wood of the empty basketball court. It was cavernous and silent, echoing with the ghosts of games played. They weren't there. The drive back to her sprawling Potomac estate was a silent, suffocating ordeal. The cold dread that had been a prickle on her neck was now a tidal wave, washing over her, stealing her breath. She pulled up to the ornate iron gates, the house standing quiet and stately against a darkening gray sky. It looked peaceful, a perfect portrait of domestic tranquility, but Victoria felt a terrible, gut-wrenching certainty that she was about to find the answer to a question she never, ever wanted to ask. She parked the car not in the garage, but down the street, a spy approaching her own life. She entered not through the grand front door, but through a side entrance leading from the garden, her movements silent and fluid. The house was still, too still. The silence itself seemed to be screaming a warning. She stood in the marble foyer, listening, and then she heard it, a sound from upstairs. Not from Jamal's room, but from the guest wing, where Donovan often stayed. It was a muffled rhythmic sound, a soft groan, followed by a low murmur. They were noises of intimacy, as unmistakable and as devastating as a gunshot. Her blood ran cold. Time seemed to slow down, each second stretching into an eternity of dawning horror. She began to move, her feet leaden, as if walking through water toward the grand sweeping staircase that led to the second floor, into the ruin of her world. If you're enjoying this story, take a moment to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on your notifications so you don't miss the next episode. Each step up the winding staircase was a lifetime. The plush runner muffled her footfalls, but the frantic pounding of her own heart was a drumbeat of doom in her ears. The sounds grew clearer as she approached the second-floor landing. The low murmur she'd heard from the foyer was now distinctly recognizable as Donovan's voice. Not coaching, but whispering. The rhythmic creak of the bed, a sound she knew intimately from her own nights with him, was now a soundtrack to the ultimate betrayal. Her world, once a meticulously constructed skyscraper of success and control, was beginning to sway on its foundations. She reached the top of the stairs and paused, her breath catching in her throat. The door to the main guest suite, Donovan's preferred room, was slightly ajar, spilling a sliver of soft, afternoon light into the hallway. She moved towards it, her body acting on some morbid, unstoppable autopilot. Every instinct screamed at her to turn back, to run, to shatter the illusion and pretend she never knew. But the CEO in her, the woman who had to know every variable, every threat, pushed her forward. She peered through the crack. The scene that unfolded was a grotesque tableau of her deepest fears. It was Donovan, his back to the door, and Jamal facing him. They were not training. They were not talking. They were entwined, their movements fluid and certain. It was a moment of shocking, undeniable intimacy. The sight was so fundamentally wrong, so profoundly shattering, that for a second Victoria's mind simply refused to process it. This wasn't real. It was a hallucination brought on by stress and suspicion, but it was real. The tenderness in Donovan's touch, the look of adoration on her son's face, it was all sickeningly, horrifyingly real. A wave of nausea washed over her, so powerful she had to grip the doorframe to keep from collapsing. The man she loved, the man she had brought into her life to be a mentor to her son, had corrupted him. Or a more terrifying thought slithered into her mind. Perhaps he had simply revealed something that was already there. She didn't scream. She didn't charge in. The shock was too deep, too absolute for a simple, clean explosion of rage. A glacial coldness spread through her veins, freezing the fury into something harder, sharper, and far more dangerous. This was not a crime of passion. This was a strategic infiltration, a hostile takeover of her family, her legacy, her son. She backed away from the door, her movements as silent as a predator stalking its prey. She retreated down the grand staircase, one deliberate step at a time. She walked out the side door, back into the manicured garden that now felt like a mockery of her perfect life. She got into her car, the engine turning over with a quiet purr that was obscene in its normalcy. She drove not aimlessly, but with a dawning, terrifying purpose. Her hands were steady on the wheel. Her mind, once clouded with love and trust, was now a landscape of crystalline, murderous clarity. She pulled over on a quiet street overlooking the Potomac River, the water a placid, gray sheet below. She scrolled through the contacts on her phone, her thumb gliding past names of executives, lawyers, and socialites. She passed Donovan's name without a flicker of emotion. Then she stopped. There was only one person who could understand the depth of this violation, the threat to the lineage she had fought so hard to build. She pressed the call button. He answered on the second ring. "Vicky?" Victoria took a steadying breath. "David," she said, her voice devoid of all warmth, a shard of ice. "I need you. Something has happened. Before you go, tap that like button, leave a comment to let us know what you think, and subscribe so you're always the first to hear our next story. Your support keeps these stories coming."